Welcome to the Boss Ladies Breakroom, the financial literacy series, brought to you by Boss Lady Miss Kamei, who will educate, inspire, and empower you to take action in building generational wealth and protecting your assets with trust documents. Welcome to the Boss Ladies Breakroom, everybody. Welcome, welcome. I am your host, Boss Lady Miss Kamei. And for those of you that are joining us live today on Facebook and LinkedIn, welcome to the live stream. You guys know that we are on YouTube the first Wednesday of every month at 2 p.m. So if you have friends that miss the live stream today, please direct them to my YouTube channel at Miss Kamei International, where they can catch this fantastic, fabulous interview that we've got for you for the month of October. As you guys know, the month of October is Workplace Bullying Awareness Month. And before I get into my call out this morning, I want to share with you my boss lady today that's joining me in the break room, Miss Jennifer Garland. She has some fantastic notary business tips that she's going to share today. She's going to talk about her business and how she has built these amazing platforms for signing agents around the country. But first, let's get right into it. Let's get this tea going. I want to talk about October being Workplace Bullying Awareness Month. You guys know that this is very personal for me. This topic is very personal. I was bullied in the workplace working for a Fortune 500 insurance defense litigation staff counsel office. And it completely changed my experience of life in the corporate workplace. Through my consulting practice, I help targets of workplace bullying get tangible tools and real-life strategies to survive and thrive in toxic work environments. I also teach a webinar that shows employees how to build a strong administrative complaint when their employer crosses the line. As the president of the National Workplace Bullying Coalition and local Vegas Legal Support Association right here in Las Vegas, I'm proud to advocate for the Dignity at Work Act, which is proposed legislation that would make workplace bullying illegal. I'm currently meeting with Nevada State Assembly members and senators to introduce the Dignity at Work Act, to introduce this bill in the 2027 legislative session. And I believe that dignity at work shouldn't be optional. It should be the law. So today's guest embodies the boss lady spirit in a very different way. Jennifer Garland built a thriving notary signing agent business from the ground up. Her story is really compelling. For those of you that are entrepreneurs that tune into the break room every month, you hear from boss ladies who have taken their passion, taken their business, and built a solid foundation that no employer can take away from them. And that's what I love about their stories. They tell you how to do it. They absolutely share steps and tools and resources that they have utilized themselves to build their own brand and their own business. She's going to share how she started, how she scaled her business, and what her business looks like today, including who she won't work with anymore. And so she's got some good tea there for us, and I can't wait for her to share. So whether you're fighting for a healthier workplace or building your own service empire, today's episode is going to be packed with receipts and inspiration that you can use right now, because we are here to educate, inspire, and empower you. I'm going to take a quick break, and when I come back, I'm going to have Jennifer Garland here with me to give you all of the tea. So do not go anywhere. Hang tight. We are going to take a break. We'll be right back for our Boss Lady Break Room interview with Jennifer Garland. Be right back. Did you know that 46% of mobile shoppers are likely to buy a product or service from a verbal ad when it's relevant to the content that they're viewing? It's responsible for capturing attention, creating interest, and persuading your target audience.
You know, it's about every woman having their unique experience. When you're on that vibroacoustic sound, equipment. Women go into their own world.
Let the Boss Ladies Break Room put your company in the spotlight. Visit my website at misscommainternational.com, click the Contact tab, and fill out the form listing sponsor ad spot in the subject line. And let us create a sponsor ad for you, your company, or service or product that you sell, which will be featured in our series. Partner with us for a greater reach to those who need you. Welcome back to the Boss Ladies Break Room. You guys help me welcome Jennifer Garland to the break room. Welcome, Jennifer. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, I could not think of any better notary business, notary signing agent, notary signing guru, remote online notary, outside of myself, of course, but I could think of no one better to join me in the break room and talk all things notary signing agent business. So I'm asking the question, who is Jennifer Garland? So I want to share that you and I became friends, I will say, through social media platforms many years ago. I think back in 2016, probably at this point. I was a new signing agent here in Las Vegas and connected to you through some various notary groups that were on social media. And I saw how you were such a support to signing agents, and not just new signing agents, but signing agents as a whole. And I saw you helping people, reaching out for work, reaching out for available signing agents in your business, and you always having the time to answer questions and really support the business as a whole. And you also were pivotal in giving us some background information on major title companies, in the game, which I really valued and appreciated from you way back when, which have proven so true today, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you are the CEO of Prestige Inc. and Notary Dash. Those are your two companies, your two babies, essentially. And so tell our audience, who's Jennifer Garland? Tell us about Prestige and Notary Dash. How did you come up with the concept for these business? Where did this all start?
Yeah. So I have been a notary since I became an adult back in Florida many years ago. But and I never really appreciated the value of the notary commission until years later, when I worked at the Attorney General's office up in Washington and really dove into the law. Of course, I used my notary commission all the time there. And then I used to do adoption signings and such, but years later got into lending and started Prestige in 2015 as a way to support the mortgage brokerage that I was managing at the time. I was an operations manager. I had a background in compliance, and it was really important to me to support our sales team better by providing notaries that didn't kill the deal at the table.
Yeah.
So I started Prestige for the sole reason to support this mortgage brokerage, and the title company that we were working at that time was using a signing service that is still in business today, and they were killing about 25% of our deals. So
wow. That's a lot.
Started
absolutely work, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, I literally saw grown men cry over the commissions they lost over notary errors. But so I started Prestige in September, and by December I had a whole office. And 6 months later, I had office after office referring me. It was just it grew, and over the next year and a half, I just focused on maintaining Prestige and working Prestige, but also maintaining my full-time job as an operations manager for a nationwide mortgage brokerage.
Wow.
Yeah. And then in 2016, only about 9 months after I had started Prestige, I had my biggest client call me and let me know that SnapDocs, which is the platform that I was using for Prestige at that time, that SnapDocs called her on her cell phone to pitch her on going direct with them. And at that time, there weren't a lot of systems where you could find someone's cell phone easily, especially someone like her that didn't list it anywhere. So she called him out on the fact that he used my contact information that I had stored in SnapDocs as his customer to poach my biggest customer and give her very valuable information proprietary to my service. And so the second that happened, I started looking into developing my own software, which I did, which is Notary Dash.
Wow. What a way to serve the need, right? What were your biggest challenges with the growth that you experienced? You know, like you said, you developed this, platform essentially, or this business to really support, what you were doing with your work. And so how did you, in regards to like the documents that you needed, and like your invoicing, like the money part of it, right? I know we'll kind of get into your tips later, and that's kind of one of your tips, but how did you stay ahead of the growth that your business was having, which enabled you to build the Notary Dash platform, which essentially is the platform where you kind of outsource notaries for signings, correct?
Yeah. So
yeah, go ahead.
Notary Dash is now one of the top three. I call it a notary vendor management platform or dashboard. And so it's one of the top three: SnapDocs, Signing Order, and Notary Dash. And it's a solution where other signing services can onboard their national signing service or their regional signing service so that they can manage their contracted, hired notaries anywhere in the country. So at that time, I had no business education. All of my, I started working in customer service when I was 16 out of high school, and and worked in customer service, the financial industry, the lending industry, and then legal industry, legal then lending. But I didn't have more than a 2-year education, and that wasn't even in business. So when I started Prestige, everything was trial and error. And when I started looking to develop Notary Dash, everything was learn as I go. Initially, I started looking to just have someone develop a database for me. And by talking with developers, I learned about white labeling. I learned that it wouldn't take as much as I thought to create a whole system, although I would have to get investors, because while Prestige was successful, it couldn't, at that time, I was only a year in, and I wouldn't be able to fund a almost $1 million project, So reached out to a lawyer that I knew who introduced me to investors, and everything from that point was trial and error. And almost pretty much every lesson had a trial and an error.
Sure. Sure. So what was your, looking back now, right? Of course, everything's been a lesson. And so trial and lesson, recalibrate, kind of recenter yourself, learn from the lesson, move forward, which really brings success. And I think, Jennifer, that's probably one of the best teachers, really. Like we go through life, we experience life. We either get it right or we're taught a lesson. And in that lesson, we learn very quickly, what not to do, right? The second time around. So what was your biggest challenge? You've got this business, Prestige is operating. And I mean, you and I could talk to you for hours about these signing companies and, how they vet signing agents and, the fees that they pay. I mean, we could do a whole episode on that alone.
Mm-hmm.
But what would you say, was your biggest challenge that taught you the best lesson, here today, where you're sitting today?
My biggest challenge was collecting money, and not having any sort of business or financial background,
Mm-hmm.
and having been a struggling single mom for 15 years at that point. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
really had no foundation for managing and scaling a
Mm-hmm.
national company. I never expected it to scale.
Mm-hmm.
But as it scaled, of course, I wanted it to. I loved it. I mean, it was my
Yeah.
passion. And so, as I scaled and started doing more business, especially with the big names that everyone wants to do business with, it never dawned on me that they would have their own bookkeeping messes, and that they would expect a small business like mine to waive significant balances just because they didn't want to deal with it or they didn't want to take the loss.
So let's kind of dive into that a little bit, because as a signing agent myself, and I don't have formal business experience, but definitely professional business experience. So how did you deal with that? How did you handle that? Like working so closely with the organization. And I definitely want to, get into, one of the largest title companies in the country that you just mentioned, that everybody seems to want to work with, and kind of, their financial practices or their invoicing practices, and kind of where you stand with them, because that's the tea for me. I just, it's like super sweet tea right there. But how did you um how did you manage that, like especially with all the growth that you were having? How did you deal with the financial aspect of your business, dealing with another major conglomerate organization who wasn't necessarily streamlined in their processes of payment either?
So, thankfully, after the first company I had went out of, so I had one company that went out of business and left me with, I want to say it was $45,000 worth of unpaid invoices.
Wow.
So once I had one company do it to me in the end of 2016, beginning of 2017, I really tried to protect myself from being in a situation where I wouldn't get paid, right? So if I did have a really big client like the ones that everyone wants to work with, then at least I could get paid. I may just not, we may not like each other anymore by the time I get paid, but at
Mhm.
least I would get paid.
Yeah.
And so having contracts in order, service level agreements that cover uh, the payment terms and when they would pay, master service agreements,
Mhm.
reading a master service agreement that is sometimes 10 and 20 pages long, fine
Yeah.
print on top of that, ensuring that there's nothing in there that would um, hurt me as a small
Mhm.
business.
Mhm.
And at times hiring a lawyer to look at it, when we got to negotiations, checking in with my lawyer, paying 300 to 500, probably it's closer to $500 now per
Yeah.
hour, to have a good lawyer say, okay, hey, I've negotiated this deal. I don't necessarily want you to rewrite it. I just want you to read it and tell me, is there anything in here where they could walk away and not pay me? Is there
Mhm.
anything in here where they could hold me responsible for something, right?
Yeah.
Is there anything in here that I need to worry about? Um, and then fixing that before you take the work,
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
And
Um,
then And then the second piece was definitely using software to keep track of those late payments. Now you have to do something, not just have the software, you have to watch it and you
Right.
have to make sure things get paid. But having something in place so that you know when there's a problem.
Yeah, yeah. So for those of you that are watching who don't necessarily know what a notary signing agent is, I just want to break it down for you. And Jennifer, jump in whenever you feel the need. So a notary public is a person who, goes through a process essentially through the state that they reside in. And they become a notary public, and it involves a background check, fingerprinting. It's kind of an extensive process that you have to go through to become a notary public. And as a notary public, you are able to notarize certain documents as a neutral witness, essentially. And to expand that business in the real estate business, the people or the person that make sure the real estate closing documents are signed, dated, initialed, and notarized is a notary public who has become certified. They've taken a certification, through various platforms, and they become a certified notary signing agent. And so what that means is they are certified in loan closing documents. They are certified to, make sure those documents are signed, dated, initialed, and they also notarize those documents. And it's a very, the last part of a real estate transaction, either a sale or a purchase or home equity line of credit, any real estate closing documents, a signing agent is certified to handle those documents. And the process in which this happens oftentimes comes through signing agent companies. So as Jennifer, you've shared, Notary Dash is a platform that is utilized to place signing agents in various jurisdictions with title companies or loan officers or escrow agents who need these real estate closing documents completed. And of course, there is a price that is charged and or a fee that is paid to the signing agent for their services. And I just want to put it out there. Anybody that is a notary public and you've heard stuff about being a signing agent, it is a very rewarding business for myself. I love being the last person at the table with the buyer or the seller, and essentially, celebrating this purchase or celebrating the sell, of somebody's real estate or land, essentially. I've met amazing people. You hear amazing stories, amazing testimonies from these clients. And then, you're also building relationships within the real estate industry with, title companies, loan officers, escrow agents, real estate agents, et cetera, et cetera. So, but there's definitely a process. There's definitely a way to do it. There's definitely a way to market yourself as well, Jennifer, right? Would you agree with that? The marketing aspect of the signing agent.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, anytime I've gone to a signing, I've always brought my business card. Of course, I'm careful that I don't market multiple businesses at once. If someone else hires me, or I get permission if someone else hires me to market, but there are so many ways that you can market as a notary or a signing agent, and there's at least 15 different niches you can get into as a notary. The real estate market is that low hanging fruit. It's already been primed for the notary industry, but there are a lot of industries that notaries can get into. Investment, adoptions. You can work for investors, like real estate investors, and do all sorts. Legal, international is a niche that you can then also help with the apostille process and legal authentication. You can focus more on consumer, general, like one-offs where they need a minor travel form or a tattoo permission form. You can get into commercial real estate, merger and acquisitions, land use, cell towers, mineral rights.
Wow.
I mean, there's like, you can get into Ron if you want to stay at home and work from home and you're in a state that has remote online notary. You
Yes.
can help with trademark stuff. Trademark, everything needs to be notarized for trademark. And then you can get into what's another one I was just thinking about? Estate planning, trust certifications, bank signings where you get referred to by your banks because the banks don't want to do anything that would make them liable anymore and make them even look liable.
Yes.
Last will and trust, you name it, you can do it. You can make friends with bondsmen because they need to get, they know a lot of people that need power of attorneys, divorce papers, all of that. What else? I mean, it just goes on and on.
Yeah. Something for everybody, essentially. Anybody with a passion in any of those industries or, in any of those walks of life. There's absolutely opportunities, local, state, country, and you said internationally as well, which is something I think in our current climate that we're seeing a lot of international stuff happening. And I guess, the way that you market yourself, in this business, as long as you are a notary public and, you maintain your certification every year, the opportunity, it's limitless, right? The opportunities are limitless.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So when we were preparing for our Boss Ladies Breakroom interview, you and I chatted a few times, and something that we talked about in preparing for our interview were core values. And we shared, personal stories with each other, where I've been, where I'm at now, where you've been, where you're at. And something that we kind of always kept coming back to were our core values. So, as a entrepreneur, as a small business, as a woman-owned business, talk to our audience about your core values and how they support you as an entrepreneur.
Yeah. So my core values, which I've also brought to Prestige, are passion, excellence, efficiently effective. Every client is a VIP, team, and accountability. So basically, I'm a perfectionist. It is to my core, I'm a perfectionist. So and I'm very passionate about my business and what I love. Like, this is my baby. I love the legal world. I love the legal part of being a notary, ensuring that every important document, no matter what industry it's in, that the person's been verified, that there's no fraud. And so I'm passionate about the law. I'm passionate about customer service and having just raving clients, right? So,
not raving clients, raving clients.
raving clients. And so my clients always feel like they're a VIP or they're a friend. Because and it's true, it's not fake for me, right? Like it's not a face or a front that I put on. It's just that I love this service. I love what we do. It's not brain surgery or rocket science, but almost every time we execute paperwork, we're having an impact on someone's life, whether that's being part of, something great like buying a house or or like like adopting a child, or even in a time of sorrow, planning for a hard time, like writing a last will and testament or getting a living will executed. which though some of those don't even require to be notarized. Let me say that for anyone that's listening, that's a notary, but we're still hired to get those documents executed and help them get executed.
Right.
So,
right.
So whenever, and one of the things that I found, unfortunately, that whenever I started Prestige, I built my model on my core values. Those are the core values I've had since the beginning. And I really expected that everyone had that same sense of excellence. If I paid well, if I treated my notaries well, that they would treat me well, they would treat my clients well. But we found that that's just not the case. Not everyone comes to the table with the same energy. Not everyone comes to the transaction with the same knowledge or the same passion or even or the same care.
Right. Yeah, something that we could kind of elaborate on, right, over probably a full hour.
Right.
Signing companies and the signing agents essentially that potentially get assigned to the job, right? And what kind of experience they have. Is this a full-time job for them, or is this just kind of a side gig for them? How are they operating in this space as a signing agent? So much to consider there, especially as a business owner, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So kind of expanding on your core values, I asked you to come to the break room today with financial literacy tips to share with our audience. This is something that all of my boss ladies do here in the break room. And I know you have some amazing tips to share. And so I want to kind of outline them for you and ask you to elaborate on these financial literacy tips that you have for our audience. So we're just going to get right into it. The first tip that you share today is to treat your notary work like a business, not a gig. So talk to us a little bit about what you mean by that.
Yeah. So opening a business banking account, tracking every expense, stop mixing personal and business funds. Treat it as a profession. You're not just a notary. This is not, even if it is a side job, don't treat it like a side hustle. Don't treat it like a gig, because it really does affect your perception of the business. If this is not a profession, even if it's a part-time profession, then you're not going to give it the same care, the same attention, and your clients will feel that.
Great tip. Number 2, know your numbers. Don't just chase signings. So, as the signing agent myself, I've been in arenas where those signing agents, they'll take a signing for $35. That's an hour away.
Right.
They seem to be chasing signings, not necessarily I guess the value in the work, right? So talk to us about that. Know your numbers. Don't just chase signings.
Yeah. So understand your real hourly rate after mileage. And when I say mileage, I'm talking about your cost per mile, not just gas, not what the IRS says you can write off, but what does it cost to run your vehicle? What does it cost to replace tires after 40,000 miles? What does it cost to purchase paper and pens and toner? And what is your time worth? Right? So not all jobs are profitable, and saying yes to every offer can actually cost you money. Yes. So learn how to calculate your break-even point and price yourself with purpose. So know your cost of doing business. There is a time that you can say yes for growth, but paying to work is never the answer. And what I mean by that is, yes, you can take low paying jobs if you're taking them back to back, right? If they're TBD and you can put 5, $25, $50 jobs all in your schedule at the same time, you get dressed, you drive once, you print once, you ship once, so all of a sudden you're making $150 or $250 for 2.5 hours of work. But if you're breaking those $25 to $50 jobs up into 5 different appointments, you're probably making less than minimum wage.
Yeah. Yeah, very key point there, right? Very, very key point. So I'd like to kind of elaborate on that a little bit, if you will. And I'm going to name names here, okay?
Yeah.
So when I started my notary signing business, Fidelity was the big name in the game, right? Fidelity title, like that's who everybody wanted to work for. That's who everybody wanted to be approved by. That's, like Fidelity was just like the godmother in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
And it was impossible. It was literally impossible to become an approved signing agent directly through Fidelity. And, I was pounding the pavement. I was going around town. I had, this big, beautiful brochure made, outlining all of my experience. And I was presenting it to, Fidelity title offices, other offices as well. But, I was really pounding the pavement hard on Fidelity and the Fidelity umbrella of title companies. And, I was like getting laughed at if I was even getting anyone's attention at all. And one day I found myself on the phone with Fidelity Corporate. And I was told by a corporate Fidelity employee that every signing agent wants to work for Fidelity. And the only, way you could work for Fidelity was to work through a signing company that Fidelity was working directly with. And you had to, come in and become an approved signing agent through that signing company. And that's how you were able to do signings and execute signings for Fidelity. That was really kind of the only way. And so, me, Miss Kamei, I like push the envelope, I push the question, like I asked for the answer. And I said to her, how I have more experience than these, just 1 year signing agents, that the signing company is just, sending. They're not even really vetting, these signing agents. They're just registering, these agents and sending who's available. And so Fidelity told me, if the only way that you will ever get approved, directly through Fidelity is if a Fidelity employee, somebody who's employed by Fidelity, actually refers you or, basically, signs a reference letter on you essentially. And so at that point, I changed, kind of my business model and how I was approaching the business. And I started working with real estate agents, directly with agents, and marketing myself to them. And I was much more successful going that route rather than banging on the Fidelity's front door to get approved. And here, present day, I've actually have been referred by a Fidelity employee, by a corporate employee. And, I went through all the red tape essentially and became an approved signing agent directly through Fidelity, only to be told that any signing that I did for Fidelity was only going to pay me a $75 fee. That was it. That was the maximum amount that Fidelity pays signing agents. And it blew my mind. And this happened, of course, before our interview today, but I shared this with you, that all these years, 7-8 years of being a signing agent and, that kind of being, the epitome of the signing agent world, only to find out the pay and how they essentially, I guess value or undervalue, a signing agent. And, I told Fidelity, I will do the signing for you. But this isn't, this is not my fee. In fact, I haven't been paid, $75 for a signing in probably 9 years. So, this is a very low fee. And I'll do it for you today, because I went through the process and got approved and I was all excited. But this isn't something that I'm going to continue to do for you. So if you need me to do a signing in your office, I need at least 4 signings before you call me to come to, come do a signing. I need 4 signings. You need to book me for 4 signings. And they need to be in your office, and you need to print all the docs for the signing and for the client to take with them. I'm not printing anything here. And those are my terms. And so, Fidelity used me a couple of times. But it's not a big book of business for me. And that's not really the business that I want, right? Can you kind of talk about that a little bit? Like, because you kind of mentioned it a little bit. That's not really the business that I want.
Right. So if you focus your marketing on direct work, right, then you get to pick your clients, you get to set your fees within reason.
Yeah.
But the big ones like Fidelity and Stewart and First American Title, they're going to use the platforms like, SnapDocs and others, and they set the fee like they're a signing service. And they just don't pay any higher than they want to pay. They're setting the fee. And that is the same experience I had with, Fidelity and Stewart when we worked with them as a signing service. They haggled us to death. They capped their fees. If they did allow a fee increase for a rural signing or for a split signing, like in 2 different locations, we would never get paid that increased fee. They'd pay what was on the CD. They'd never pay the difference. And I say never, to be clear, I'm sure they paid it sometimes, but I often saw those unpaid invoices or those balance for those unpaid invoices on our books.
I did as well. I saw it as well. It wasn't just you, girl. Yeah. So that leads me into your next tip. Keep your own books. Don't rely on companies to pay you. So talk to us about that tip.
Right. So many notaries got into this business since COVID. And even prior to that, the 3, 4, 5 years prior to that, when SnapDocs was really getting hot and attracting other notaries that were not previously in the signing service world. And those systems, a lot of the signing services don't require you to invoice, and that's up to each company. They can manage their company the way that they want, but due to the IRS, due to like liability and states and workman's comp and labor and industries and unemployment and so many, like in California is getting really strict about contractors and employee law. More and more companies are moving to an invoice required for payment. But my point is not necessarily that you have to invoice, but keep your books. Make sure that you have a system like QuickBooks or, Quicken. If you have no like accounting software know-how, if you can't figure it out, use Excel. I used Excel as a signing agent and as a mobile notary to make sure who I got, who owed me and who paid me for years before I started Prestige. And if that's too much, then just buy yourself a book, a journal, and keep track of every single, and I'm not talking about a notary journal, I'm talking about a budget journal. Keep track every line item for every single job that you do, because so many notaries out there believe that signing services and title companies don't require you to send an invoice for payment. So they just have gotten, and I say they as the notary industry as a whole have gotten into the very bad practice of not keeping your own books, not keeping any books at all, and just trusting that the company that hired you is going to pay you, but they are not your employer. They have no legal obligation to pay you.
Right.
They're not breaking a law by not paying you. I don't care what laws people will throw out there. Unless you send them an invoice, then they don't have to pay you. Now, if a company says you don't have to send us an invoice, great, don't send them an invoice, wait for their payment. But if they're late,
Yeah.
have that system set up on a payment reminder. Hey, you missed your payment. You missed my payment. It was due, yesterday. I haven't or it was due 15 days ago. I don't care when you notify the companies that owe you money, when they need to pay you. You can wait, you can be patient, you can wait 60 days. I waited 60 days before sending payment reminders because I knew a lot of times the title companies were slow to pay, at least the teams that I worked with. I was stunned when people constantly told me they got paid the week after they did the job. But I used to get envelopes full of checks, 45 days after signings. But I would say that if you don't know what what you are earning, and on an accrual basis, meaning not cash, you're accruing it until it's cash in your pocket. It's accrued income, right?
Right.
So
Right.
if you don't know what you're making, if you don't know who owes you, when those companies don't pay you, you have no way of knowing which companies those are. And if you're busy, if you're growing your business, it can be thousands of dollars. I remember just during this conversation right now, I have 3 different stories where notaries have called me asking about payments and invoices, and I've encouraged them to go through all of their signings and making sure that they have gotten paid by everybody, only to find out that one guy was owed $7,000.
Wow.
Another gal was owed over $30,000. And another one I think was $14,000, from all of them from one company that they were told did not require invoices.
Well, and we're not going to speculate, right? But there's a reason. There's a reason for a company to utilize a notary signing agent for $14,000 worth of work. I mean, because the accounting is showing on their end as well.
Mm-hmm.
If they're keeping their books, right? Quote unquote, if they're keeping their books.
Well, and it would depend in how they create those books. If they don't create it until they actually receive the invoice, then they wouldn't know until the notary sends it.
Sure.
But for notaries to work years for a company and not know that the company hasn't paid them, regardless if it's because they didn't invoice or because the signing service just didn't pay them. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I know signing services that went out of business prior to COVID, that their entire work model was, we hire notaries for 6 to 12 months until no one will work with us anymore. Then we shut our doors and we open up another business. And there were a couple of guys that were doing that prior to COVID.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah.
That seems criminal, right? That seems criminal to me, but they're still walking around.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Just to kind of, get through, I feel your most important, tip that you're sharing today. You kind of talked about like reading terms and conditions as a top tip as well. And then communicating with the hiring party, like you've talked about, invoicing, keeping track of, the work that they're doing, understanding when a client pays. A lot of clients, right? Signing companies, title companies, they'll tell you, well, we close in 30 days, or we send your check in 30 days or 45 days or 60 days, and making a note of it, keeping track of that, making sure that you communicate and that you understand, and that you're aware of how it's working with this client. Your last most important tip that I can't wait for you to elaborate on. You are your number one asset. That is your final top tip to share today. And so talk to us about that, how you've come to have an understanding about you being your number one asset, and how you're sharing that with our audience today.
Yes. So when I say, so you're your number one asset, you're your most valuable asset, you're your most important asset. It comes from a variety of thought processes. Number one, loving yourself, taking care of yourself, just like you would anything else that you owned that was valuable. Your health, your emotional and mental health, your freedom, your time, your family time, your whether you go to church or pray or meditate. You need to take care of your soul, you need to take care of your health, and it doesn't matter what your background is, right? So
Right.
and also in education, learning and feeding your mind. So I mentioned a couple of times that I came with no background, no business education. I Both of my parents were entrepreneurs. I was raised by a single mom. I was
Hmm.
a single mom.
Hmm.
you know Grew up, not with too much extra cash floating around.
Hmm.
We struggled. We knew what struggling was.
Hmm.
My mom worked 6 to 7 days a week, and everyone but my mom took care of me and took me to all the extracurricular activities and sports and plays. And so whenever I started Prestige and being able to spend time with my daughter, that really did fight for my attention with
Hmm.
my work. And I had to learn to set boundaries,
Hmm.
because, I could easily work from 5 a.m. until 9 p.m. and
Yeah.
miss out on my daughter's life
Yeah.
because, my clients were very demanding in this space.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so you have to learn how to set boundaries, and your clients will respect them. You just tell them you close at 6, or you close at 8, or Tuesdays and Thursdays you get off at 4, or Fridays you get off at noon, right?
Yeah.
You have a day that you spend with your family or whatever it is that's important to you. And no matter what your background, often I get accused of so many things. People love me or people love to hate me, but whenever you're in front of 300,000 notary vendors, you're bound to have people that you built relationships with. I have people that get on the phone with me and they're like, "Oh, I'm your number one fan," and I love that. That anyone has ever been inspired by me, because there was a time in my life not very long ago
Hmm. Hmm.
that I didn't see myself as someone that could inspire anybody. I
Hmm.
was broke. I was living check to check. There was a year that I maxed out on payday loans. I didn't even know you could max out on payday loans. I couldn't pay for my daughter's trip to DC when she was 12 years old. I struggled with depression and anxiety. I had a background in sex abuse and child sex abuse,
Hmm. Hmm.
um, and then from all of that, I developed fibromyalgia before I was even an adult, and I've struggled with it this
Hmm.
whole time. But the one thing that I've noticed is when I'm with my family, when I'm with my daughter, when I'm with my significant other, when I'm with my baby boy, and when I'm working, when I'm doing something that I love, when I'm helping clients, like I don't feel the pain. I don't get anxious. I don't struggle with that. And so, yes, of course, I did a lot of work and a lot of prayer, and I spent a lot of time with God, and learning how to love myself and forgive myself, and to see myself as someone that was born into this world to be a blessing when I could be a blessing, and to support people when I could support people, because that's my passion. That's what God put into my DNA and into my heart.
Yeah.
But also to realize that I'm also not perfect. I'm learning every day.
Mhm.
As much as I want to be a perfectionist, I will never be perfect, right?
Right,
And I
right.
will always be the hardest on me than I am on anybody.
Of course, of course. We are our own worst critic, right? And I feel that we know how we can do better, the best, better than
Right.
anybody. Jennifer, it has been a great pleasure having you join me today in the break room. You are our first notary boss lady. So I give you the honor, I give you the throne for joining
Thank
me
you.
today, talking about the signing agent business, how lucrative it can be, how successful somebody can be, following simple principles. And the most important is that they are their number one asset. So thank you
Mhm.
so much for sharing in transparency today your journey, talking about the things that you have overcome. I think it's so important for us as boss ladies to know that, we can see you. People can look at Jennifer, or people can look at Miss Kamei and think, oh, we have it together, or we've made it, or we've arrived. And the truth is that the journey is never over. And we're
Right.
always, working on ourselves and learning to be better, becoming a better version for ourselves, so that we can be a better version to those around us, right?
Right. Absolutely. Love
So
it.
really, really quickly, where can people connect with you at? What is your website? What social handles can people connect with you if they've got questions, of course, regarding the signing agent business? If they want to maybe register with Notary Dash or Prestige to become a signing agent, and work with you, how can people connect with you?
Yep. So it's prestigeinc.com, and that's Inc as in incorporated, INC, and notary-.com, and that's spelled out. And then, of course, I'm on LinkedIn under Jennifer Garland, and on Facebook under Jennifer Garland. So, I love when people reach out to me. Sometimes I might be a little bit slow just because sometimes it's busy, so I
Yeah.
might go a few days without talking to people, but I absolutely always do respond as long as you get in my inbox.
Perfect. Well, thank you again, Jennifer. Thank you so much. We will definitely stay connected, and I will definitely direct people to connect with you who want to become signing agents, who are interested in the industry, and to the go-to woman, the go-to boss ladies, Jennifer Garland. Thank you so much for joining me today, Jennifer. Have a fantastic rest of your day. I'm going to take a quick break, you guys. And when I come back, I'm going to tell you guys about the workplace bullying webinar presentation that I teach, and offering tools and resources to help targets who are being bullied in the workplace. So don't go anywhere. I'm going to take a quick break. I'll be right back. Did you know that 46% of mobile shoppers are likely to buy a product or service from a verbal ad when it's relevant to the content that they're viewing? It's responsible for capturing attention, creating interest, and persuading your target audience.
It's about every woman having their unique experience. When you're on that vibroacoustic sound equipment, women go into their own world.
Let the Boss Ladies Break Room put your company in the spotlight. Visit my website at misskameinternational.com, click the contact tab, and fill out the form listing sponsor ad spot in the subject line. And let us create a sponsor ad for you, your company, or service or product that you sell, which will be featured in our series. Partner with us for a greater reach to those who need you. Boss ladies, what a powerful conversation today with Jennifer Garland, CEO of Prestige and Notary Dash. Such a wonderful, wonderful testimony from her, and proof that you can build your own lane, sign your own checks, and make an impact on your own terms. You've heard it straight from Jennifer Garland herself. As we close the Boss Ladies Break Room today, I want to remind you that October is Workplace Bullying Awareness Month. If you're dealing with a toxic workplace or supporting someone who is, there are tools and resources waiting for you. Through my consulting practice, I help targets of workplace bullying build strong administrative complaints through the EEOC and OSHA, and help them navigate through the storm with clarity and confidence. I help give you your power back and help you see the future, and that you do have choices. You do have options. You do not have to stay in a toxic bullying work environment. So here's my call to action, you guys. Book a confidential consultation with me. Go to my website, MissKameiInternational.com, and click on the contact tab. You can also book online, reach out to me and schedule a consultation. Register for my upcoming workplace bullying webinar presentation, October 15th, which is just here in a couple of weeks at 11 a.m. I will be giving my workplace bullying presentation that will offer tools, tangible tools and resources that you can use to navigate through a toxic work environment. Connect with local Vegas legal support here in Nevada. Also, the National Workplace Bullying Coalition. You guys can find us both on LinkedIn, and support our movement in reaching out to legislators, introducing the Dignity at Work Act, and encouraging the state to make bullying in our workplaces illegal. And finally, subscribe to my YouTube channel and share this episode with a friend who needs it. And remember, our mission here in the break room is to educate, inspire, and empower you to take action in building generational wealth and protecting your assets with trust documents. I'll see you guys next month at 2 p.m. right here on YouTube for the Boss Ladies Break Room with another fabulous boss lady joining us. Have a great day, you guys. Thanks for joining me in the Boss Ladies Break Room for the Financial Literacy Series. Remember, subscribe to my YouTube channel at Miss Kamei International and join me the first Wednesday of every month at 2 p.m. right here in the Break Room.